Evening, everybody. Thank you for coming this evening. My name is Daniel Brown. I'm the Microsoft Copilot user group lead, as well as the Microsoft 365 user group lead, as well as some other titles. Long story short, I'm also director of Archinosis as well. But, so I probably should have gone through this, sorry. So about myself, principal consultant of Archinosis. I'm the user group lead on both user groups there. Microsoft certified, Microsoft MVP, speaker. I'm also a Windows alpha tester, an Office 365 and Office desktop alpha tester as well. So if Windows or Copilot or Office plays up on my laptop, I do apologize. I literally got some new features this morning. So we might see them. Anything I show tonight, you can show. It's not super secret. It's all public domain, all that sort of stuff. So no drama there. To give you a little bit of background about my past, I started life as a C/C++/assembler developer back in 2001, 2002, around then. So I was fresh out of school, about 18, 19, moved over here. I was originally from Victoria. I got stuck into Windows pretty hard, ripping it apart, like literally decompiling DLLs, backwards engineering. And that's how I sort of got my sort of start in SharePoint. And that's, long story short, built a great web app and I want version control in it. SharePoint has version control. Let's rip that out with, what was it, IL Spy and, reverse engineer the code. But then it clicked, well, why do I need to put SharePoint into my app when I can put my app into SharePoint? And that's then how that all flowed, because now I don't have to duplicate those features. I can now leverage the SharePoint platform. So that got me stuck into SharePoint, content management. That got me into the world of information management, data analytics, Power BI, you name it. I've pretty much done it in terms of the 365, the SharePoint, the Windows platform. There's not much I haven't done, to the extent where I could write my own GINA. If you're old enough to know what a GINA is, they're not used anymore. They are the graphical interface something or authentication. When you push Control-Alt-Delete to log into Windows, we can make custom ones, or we used to be able to make custom ones of those. And I still got the code. I actually found it this afternoon, and it was a GINA to back end into MySQL, a user table. So why not? I was bored. And that's essentially got me into technology. I mean, the age of 19, I grew up in country Victoria, where the population was 1,500 and I was the last house on the dirt road with the last electricity pole. So very much self-taught in the early days, but these days I've not, so much self-taught as I actually follow the training courses and get in there, especially with Microsoft Learn. If you are on LinkedIn, feel free to hit me up. I will probably blast you with posts, unfortunately, running 2 user groups and supporting another 2. And everything is in between, so I do apologise if I do overload a little bit, but it is for a good cause. I mean, I'm running 2 user groups, I've got to pump out the knowledge. And essentially I've now moved into, because the 365 platform, as I was saying earlier, back in the day it was more, I'm an O365 guy, and there's the Azure people. They're the sysadmins, I'm the modern work, content, and certainly last 2 years, 2.5 to 3 years, we're seeing more of that line blur between O365, which is now, for sake of a better name, just a brand only. It's not actually a product per se. It's all coming under the M365 banner. So I've had to learn and do all of that sort of stuff, and here we are today. So I'm going to cover how we can extend. I'm going to change this a little bit on the fly because both my plugin and my extension have decided to stop working. Both demos, perfect timing, but we can go through the code, we'll go through the schema and everything like that. I do have screenshots of what it looks like, so we'll just pretend. But I'm going to dive into, actually I'm going to take a step back, and rather than talk about Copilot initially, we're going to go through the official spiel and some cool deep details and points around, I want a Copilot, I want a red one. Because literally as I had the conversation today, hey, this management, they went to a workshop and they want an AI. The hell does that mean? Like, that's way too vague. So we'll get into all of it. But first, as I said, user groups. So the logos are now opposite. Obviously, there we go. So they've swapped around logos. So first Wednesday of the month and third Tuesday of the month are the user groups that I lead. There is as I'm sure everyone here knows, there is a community of techies. We've got several user groups ranging from Azure, .NET Pro, .NET, IT Pro, 365, Copilot, SQL Server, which is data analytics. So if you are sort of thinking of what you can do one night or one afternoon, there's heaps of user groups. As I was saying to David a little earlier, it's been roughly about, 15, 16 years since I've last presented at ADNUG. So it's been a while. The topic, and this is literally me in my younger form, presenting SharePoint workflows programming with Visual Studio 2008 tools. So that's how long I've been doing it for, and there's my presentation slides. I actually found them this afternoon. So cool, although the email address doesn't work, but that was the level of presentations back in the day. So for those of you unaware or too young, that used to happen at the old Microsoft building in Curry Street. It was there in the Westpac House, and we had an auditorium, and it was funky and different times. It was really cool. So jumping in, I thought, I've been playing with Copilot for about 18 months now, give or take, in various forms. Now, Copilot itself came out late last year, as we've seen in sort of November. Prior to that, there was all the Azure AI stack that we got into. And yet again, if you've seen on LinkedIn, and I will demo it tonight, I have got my own custom vision models. They do, long story short, Cooper PD, Opal, custom vision. We'll deep dive into it. And that's really got me into what AI can actually do. Because when people say, oh, what can AI do? What do you mean? What framing do you want to do? What context do you want to mean? Do you want it to help you write code? Do you want it to be in an application? Do you want it to be able to action items as well? Like all these different questions. And is it just on your data, or is it are you looking at sort of planograms or inspecting images and all this sort of stuff? So a lot of people have come to the realization that natural language and AI go really well together, as we've seen with Gen AI. So a lot of places are using it to interact with their data. I developed this for John back in the day. How many chickens did I sell at the store in Stepney? And it would come back, you sold 12. Do you want to see the report? Here's the link. Cool. Very instant, very quick response. Sends you off to the monthly sales report. Happy days. Now, since then, that was VirtualBots. Now it's gone into Copilot Studio. But this is one way places are using it. They're putting it against their data, their sales data, or their production data, or their manufacturing data, and saying, what are X? When did we do Y? And getting a response out of that. Drafting emails. If you've used ChatGPT, hands up if you haven't used ChatGPT. Couple, that's fine. And I will go into the difference of those as well, but draft this email, draft this document, summarize it. Those are very standard. Now, I will get into that, but that's a lot of Copilot for Microsoft 365. I'm apologizing about how many times I'm going to say Copilot in the different contexts tonight, because there is a whole heap of it. Draft proposals, all this sort of stuff. Interaction with data. Power BI has just kicked up a whole bunch of stuff with Fabric as well. What else have we got there? Excel, finally, we've got Copilot in Excel. That was the last one in the Office suite to come. And the reason for that was, you think over the last 20 years, how many cool formulas people have developed in Excel? Way beyond the capability of Copilot in this day and age. Now it has caught up. But that was roughly the reason of why Copilot in Excel took a little bit to sort of come forward, because it wasn't really good at those custom formulas. And we're seeing it, interacting with data sets, as I said, creating training material. Quizzes and tests is another way that I'm seeing this Copilot for 365 be used. So, test me on this subject, quiz me on this, create tests, create this. There's different ways that Copilot and Azure AI are being used, and Copilot Studio. So those are the three heads, the Kerberos heads of AI in Microsoft. Creating images, cool thing, DALL-E, Copilot, happy days with images, marketing. Still a little bit wonky. Over the last sort of 2 years, I've been doing a family tree. And I can only get back, last name Brown, so that's really handy when going to the family tree. Got back to about 1750. I want to go back further. Well, unless I go to England, it ain't going to happen. But I know for a fact with my DNA records, I've got Scandinavian in me. We were once Vikings. So, hey, Copilot, can you generate me a 43-year-old Viking male Scandinavian in the year 800 AD? Yep, no problem. Do that with the wife, and all of a sudden her earrings aren't actually attached to her lobes. So you've got the pendant on the ear, but not the connection to it. The reason why I say that is because that is also very visual, but it's also happening in when you generate text in AI. It may get this bit right, and this bit right, the ear and the pendant in the earring, but that little bit of that middle part still might need refinement, and that's, say, through things like RAG, and we'll dive into some of these technologies as well. So just got to be careful with it. It is still very much version 1.0. Optimizing driving routes, this is something that I'm working on currently, and this will be using a new model called Phi-3, P-H-I, or Pi, no, Phi, sorry. Phi-3, it's actually a small language model developed by Microsoft. It is available in the Azure store at the moment. We'll dive into that as well. Driving routes, give me the best driving route. I've got these 40 passes to deliver, optimize times, optimize fuel, optimize brakes. We can put all these sort of variables in. For this it was a contractor at an airport, not in Australia, it was in England. And you know all the little service cars that come around? We were optimizing driving routes for those. Very cool. Computer vision, we'll dive into some of this tonight because I've actually got working code of this. Basically, the name in itself says it, computer vision. What can the computer actually see? What can it interpret? One that I am working on, and I've got to get the images for it, is we're looking at doing some monitoring of actual alcoholic distills. So this is where one of these things of AI goes, well, what do you mean when I say AI? We're actually going to sit it up there with a camera to look at the stills for bubbles and color changes. Can we do it with IoT? Yes. Can we do it with sensors? Yes. Is this another predictive layer? Yes. So this way, there starts some bubbles form, ring a light, ring a bell, inform someone to say, hey, you need to go check this as a matter of urgency. So these are some of the things that AI can be used for. Another one that we're looking at is predictive maintenance on their refrigerators. So big warehouse full of refrigerators, and they want to know potentially if there's a potential issue in the future to try and counteract, hey, that refrige broke, we've now got all that stock in there, quick scram to get it out. So this is very much what I mean with what do you actually mean by AI? Are you talking generative AI like ChatGPT or Copilot, or are you talking let's make a model that can actually do something like with Azure AI? There is a little bit of grey ground, and that is Copilot Studio in the middle of them. Yet again, we'll dive into it. This is very much just introductory at the moment. If you've got any questions at the time, I don't know how .NET usually runs, but stick your hand up. I'm not offended if you interrupt me. Just yell it out. Happy to. Yep.
Can it generate timetables?
Sorry?
Can Copilot generate timetables?
I can't hear you, John, sorry.
Can Copilot generate timetables?
Let me come around. I'm here, sorry.
Do you know how it can do traffic routes?
Yep.
So could it also do timetables?
I'm going to say yes with an asterisk. It will depend on your data sets. So you're going to have some way of knowing how long distance equals time, essentially.
Yeah.
Have that math behind it. Get those values from your mapping. In this case, I would use bing.maps or maps.bing, and try and get those estimated values. So when there's traffic interruptions, the length, and then try and get a time as well with that. And then from there, theoretically, you should be able to, although I haven't done it, predict what time they should be at. It would be a prediction. Is that what you're sort of saying? So it would be like at 1 o'clock here, 1:15 here, 1:30 here?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yep. So yes, it can sort of do that. It does depend largely on how it's trained and how the information is sort of ingested into the system. A little bit of the scope of Copilot. So Microsoft Copilot is actually a product. It is. And it's being exposed in all of these areas plus more, including up the very top, Notepad, Paint. So they're actually coming live this month. We're actually getting rewrite with Copilot and spell check in Notepad after 40 years. Yes. But that's the extent of where Copilot is going, and this is just Copilot itself. This isn't Copilot for 365, Copilot for help desk, Copilot for security. It is coming everywhere, as one might expect, given how much everyone has seen Copilot. So, jumping on, I'll try and go through these ones fairly quickly, but I just want to sort of point out how Microsoft and AI have sort of been coming together over the last 6, 7, 8 years. So basically it started in 2016 publicly with Satya coming out with a Slate article about responsible AI and their journey and how Microsoft is going to create the framework. So this is still very much an ongoing journey for Microsoft. Are they getting everything right? No. Are they getting everything wrong? No. It is a very fine path between what you at home would accept as an AI versus what you in a work environment would accept as an AI. So, you've got your home grade, you've got your business grade, you've got your enterprise grade. And that's sort of where Microsoft and AI is going in terms of their responsible and ethical practices regarding AI. So the AI principles, these are baked into all models that Microsoft do have and Copilot itself. So when we say Copilot, we're not actually sure what model is being used. Copilot is a catch-all term. It will, based on what you're doing, pick what it thinks is the best model in the back end to interact with to get your results. You get the transparency, privacy, security, all that sort of stuff. On that note, if you're using Copilot, it won't, or Copilot for Microsoft 365, it will not use your information to train the model. ChatGPT will. So that's just one distinction. So a few of my clients are like, well, we don't want our information being, technically this is a problem. So I could have a conversation with ChatGPT, and once the model has ingested that, someone else could have a conversation with ChatGPT and potentially get information from my chat. Is it possible? We don't actually know. We haven't seen any examples of this, but that's one of the things that Microsoft does distinguish and does delineate themselves, is that they do not use customer data for training. This also includes GitHub, Copilot, all of the suite. So it's all the same. Anything that's AI, Copilot, Microsoft, done. Same framework, same rules. So I'm sure a lot of people do know the answer to a lot of these questions, but where does Microsoft store your data? Long story short, where you tell it to. If you tell it to store it in Australia, it will store it in Australia. If you want it to store it somewhere else, it will do that there as well. You control your data. We do not, or Microsoft does not train based on your data. And it's always encrypted in rest and in transit. So that way it's all safe and secure. Is there ways and mechanisms around this? Yes, of course. We're all developers. We can do what we want to do in terms of that suite, but for the most part, it's pretty rock solid. So, jumping into a little bit of now delineation between what a Copilot is and what Azure AI is. So, Azure AI is the actual platform itself. Copilot, as I said, is a product. So here you've got the two based on logos. Azure AI is build a Copilot, and Copilot is buy a Copilot. Very simple. However, both of them do use the Azure AI stack to create those Copilots. And it's a really cool thing, the OpenAI SDK should connect to the OpenAI in Azure too. I haven't tried it yet, but theoretically, it should just be very seamlessly. So with Copilot, the one that everybody was really bee's knees about is that second one, Copilot for Microsoft 365. That was the one where we want Gen AI in our emails and our files and everything else. That got out, cool, happy days, but then now we've got this list, and this list is just literally growing by the day. Copilot for service, finance, help desk, security. These are Copilot models that are trained specifically for these roles. So, finance, it's heavily Excel, it's heavily formula-based, heavily currency, heavily accounting, things like that. So you have to sort of navigate what a Copilot and what a Copilot is, if that makes sense. So you've got your own Copilot, you've got Copilot, you've got other Copilots. And this, as I said, is just going to continue to grow. I haven't updated this list for maybe 4 months, but I'm sure people could, like, Copilot for Power Apps, Copilot for Power BI, for Fabric, it's all in there. Teams as well. Where Azure AI is pretty much, we want to create our own models, we want to create our own search, use the semantic indexes, do face detection, speech and language, document intelligence. This is what you would call an AI. This is what, when people say, hey, I want an AI, an artificial intelligence, these are the technologies that Microsoft are offering, plus a few other ones that we can sort of have a quick look at and things like that. But those are the main ones. I do want to point out one that is face detection. This has come at a little bit of a cost. So when I first wrote my AI to have a look at Opal, I was putting in the test samples and we could point it at the kids, point it at my wife, hey, male, female, glasses, happy, sad. Microsoft have put an end to that for ethical reasons. So we can't actually detect if you're male or female, have hair, what your gender is, those sort of things. They've put that ban hammer down. They originally did ban it for police stations or law enforcement, but now, unless you've got a really, really good reason to use it, they will not let you use it. You can't actually deploy the Face API stuff, which is a shame because, you want to potentially use it. I've got a scenario in my head where I want to use it, and I can't. So, unfortunately, but these are the components in Azure AI that essentially will make up what everyone understands as Microsoft Copilot. There's a semantic index, there's the models, there's various models and everything in there to package up and build a Copilot. So the Copilot architecture, to give you a little bit of a breakdown, and this is where we sort of will get a little bit into it a little bit more. So we've got our plugins and our connectors. So a lot of, if you do actually want to extend Copilot itself, you don't extend Copilot, you extend Graph. Graph is exposed to Copilot, graph. That is the crux of Copilot. Copilot leverages Graph. So if you want to create a connector, and I've got the code, same with the plugin, both ways of getting external data into your semantic index or into Copilot. So that way you can start to have meaningful conversations with external systems. The demo that I've got, long story short, we've got a Contoso SharePoint site, product group, product table, and I can say, hey, what products have we got in SharePoint? And it points directly to that, gives me the images and things like that. That's extensions. I've kept it simple just to sort of prove the concept, but those are the ways that we interact with Copilot. We don't actually go, okay, file, new plugin, Copilot plugin. It doesn't actually happen like that. Where it happens is with the Graph connectors, because then it can also hit search, it can go right across your tenancy. You've got access to a whole much more through Graph. Is anyone using Graph connectors at the moment? They essentially sit in between things. So in this case, it would be in between Graph, your content, and Copilot Graph, the API connector where you can actually expose it. So the AI safety and security, just a quick one while we're here. To give you a little bit of a breakdown, the AI infrastructure, this is all the Azure Copilot Studio, which we'll also touch on, but I just want to bring it up now. Copilot plus Visual Studio plus all this, we can bring it in. Cloud, Edge, I mean, I'm singing to the choir a little bit here. Basically, everything below this line is real AI, or my term, real AIs. That's where you actually make an artificial intelligence. Everything above here is where you're leveraging an artificial intelligence. So you've got Microsoft Copilot, and then your Copilot's built with Copilot Studio with the help of Copilot. So that's a fun one. So when we look at Copilot for 365, this is Teams, little video. And off we go. This is where it's actually going through that process, that safety mechanisms, going through, making sure that it hasn't detected anything inappropriate, and off it goes. Very simple. So, and of course, because it's a video. Here we go, the architecture. So we've got the user prompts. It goes into pre-processing through Microsoft Graph. This is where it actually finds all your content, goes and scours it, and this is where you would also have your connectors as well. Goes into the Copilot brain, goes into the large language model, does its thing, it's modified along the way, Goes back to graph to make sure that what it's actually going to tell you does actually relate to your data. And this is where Copilot actually comes up with those references, where it can actually reference where it found that information. So this is all just stock standard 365 Copilot at the moment, and it goes back to your application for your response. Very basic, very simple, this diagram. So, my demos. This is the fun part. So, actually, what I might do, so we'll flick that back over. Good old TeamViewer. I will go into here. So, this is the demo that I was going to show, but it's broke. Basically, this is the Contoso database. We can go in, ask it various questions, and we actually get our information directly out of SharePoint. How do we do this? It is a graph connector and a graph plugin. That's what it is, C#. It's all in C#. We're actually seeing more of diversions from C#. We're actually seeing more TypeScript, more Python coming along as well with things and how it's all going to work. Personally, the reason why is I don't think C#'s an elegant language enough to interact with AI in the way that we need to. Object-oriented language, very cool, no problem there. Functional language, very cool, no problem there. But how do we actually program against the new technology that we're not really sure of? It's still early days, we're still feeling it out. And then, you can have these references down the bottom. And this is where, where are the features of the Mark 8? That will pull it out from SharePoint, from your content, or from an external source as well. Let me jump into it. So we'll actually go into some code now. So this is the graph extension. So for brevity, I've skipped over a whole bunch of stuff, create it, download the basic graph extension, and we put our code in. It's really an amount of running this setup.pss1. How it interacts with 365 is it's an application. So you've got to have an app ID, app secret, all that sort of stuff. I won't go through because it does take a little bit to set up. But what this extension, this is an extension, does is I can actually talk to it and tell me content. So the demo that I was going to show is how do I create a graph client in C#? And it goes off and it actually makes up this weird method. Still to this day, it makes up this method that doesn't actually exist in the API. We pointed at the proper Microsoft Learn content, and all of a sudden now we can get that better refinement, better information. The reason why I wanted to show this is because that content is actually local. These are local MD files, the Markdown files. And we've got them stored in our content folder. Now, pretty boring, don't get me wrong, with the whole Microsoft Learn content, but this could be quite easily a SQL Server database. It could be text files, it could be XML files, JSON files. It's just something that I picked. Microsoft Learn, everybody knows, it's quite boring. And it does give you that refinement. Now, the good one, there we go, is this connection configuration. This is where we actually take the information, twist it about, and ingest it. When you run the build for it, it will go off and ingest that data for you. It takes about 5-10 minutes to do it. And you've got to have all that associated with the schema. So whatever you want to expose in Copilot, you need a schema and you need to tell Copilot how to expose that. And that should be, if I can scroll down properly, our schema. So we're actually just going to expose title, description, and property. It's real basic, don't get me wrong. But yet again, the whole point of this is to be basic so you can take away and go, okay, well, I actually want to expose this property, this information, these details. And I mean, it's all in just .NET VS Code. Happy days with this one. This is extensions in code. You want to do plugins, we have to go into VS. But I've got one. Here's one I prepared earlier. So now we'll jump into VS. Cool, at least I don't have my private key up. So yet again, I've created a very basic one. Must admit I did borrow some code from a friend of mine. And this essentially does the same thing. It goes out, goes to SharePoint, gets that information. However, and this is the pain in the butt, this is actually using the Teams SDK, the Teams tool SDK. So we can actually launch, well, if I just push F5, and because it's through TeamViewer, so it goes off, builds, yet again, singing to the choir, and it's got all the connectors, it's got the app secret in there, so I can go off and actually authenticate into my environment. And we're now launching Teams. So this actually has a dev channel back through a webhook. So here's my beautiful extension that doesn't want to work at the moment because I'm presenting, but it comes up, you've got to have permission to be able to sideload Teams custom apps. You click add, and fingers crossed. I was hoping it was just a time thing with the settings. But this will then add it. Beautiful, we're in. So now I've got a chat with my plugin that's pointing to SharePoint. So, fingers crossed, what products do I have in the list? And hopefully it does its thing. Come on. Give it a moment while it does that. But in essence, you can deploy this through Teams. Now, is this just through Teams? No. If we do the whole manual deploy, it comes up, do you want to deploy to Office 365, Teams, and for some weird reason, Outlook? Don't know why, but Outlook was the first one to be able to get it, and come on, we're not doing anything. Bugger. I'm like this close. But long story short, it shows the product information out of SharePoint. Yet again, concept, it could be out of any system. It doesn't have to necessarily be SharePoint. I'm glad because it was coming up and just saying something went wrong, so it's actually working better than before. Unfortunately, I don't have a live demo of this, but give me half an hour after I get home and you probably download it off my website. We can debug this as well within Visual Studio once we hit the code. Now we've got what they call as a dev channel back. So long story short, it's all webhooks. You push it up, you say, hey, I want to have this channel or this SOX channel back. So when we add things, when things happen, we can then set up breakpoints in the code. It all fires, it all happy. When it's happy, when we see it fires up on 7,130 and 5,130 ports. So you need those ports actually open to your dev machine. That's a fun one. So we'll see, yet again, it's early days in the product tools, but these are the life of, unfortunately, of early adopters. So as we can see, it's not working, and that's where we would see it should come up, or it should have come up. Sorry, let me just go back. Something like that. So you'll actually get these custom images being exposed from SharePoint. These aren't images, it's just finding this is the image for that product. It's actually getting that information. So it's very similar to a product I want to sort of dive in just before I go into Azure AI, is Copilot Studio. So Copilot Studio sort of sits in between Copilot and Azure AI. You can essentially make a bot, for those of you in the old world language, which was Microsoft Virtual Bots or Virtual Agents. They've now been renamed to Copilot, and we can see that we've got some Copilots in here. To create a Copilot in this scenario, and this is where we leverage Copilot rather than creating our own AI, we go new, and this can all be done with zero code. You can do this with TypeScript and C# as well. There's extensions, and we've now got a very boring blank Copilot. So I won't click create, I'll just go skip to configure. And we can add some knowledge sources. So this is where you can start to refine that knowledge. And this is purely the generative AI side of Copilot and Copilot Studio. As you can see, coming soon, Fabric. It's still very new, very shiny, public website. We'll enter a link of good old Lego. Yep, cool. So now what this Copilot is being told to do is first hit lego.com for any information. If you can't find it there, then fall back to the Copilot LLM, and then give me the response. By the time it hits there, it's probably going to be wrong. I'm not going to deny it. You can add, originally there was up to 5 sources, but I believe now it's a little bit more, and we click create. Done. There are a few different things if you want to expose it to SharePoint. You have to set up OAuth tokens and all that sort of stuff, because long story short, Copilot has to authenticate as you into SharePoint, so it gets your context. Because anything you can access, Copilot can access, even if you don't know you can access it. And that's freaked out a lot of businesses earlier on the year, late last year. They're like, oh yeah, what do you mean they can access it all? It's like, yeah, well, the people can access it, so someone on behalf of it can access it. So we've got a Copilot now, it's all created. And hopefully it's going to come back and with a suggestion from lego.com. Boom, straight in there. Very simple, very rudimentary. Like that's the low code, no code option. I don't have to do anything like that. So if you want a little bit more of a complicated one, I've got this Copilot for QMS. Here's one I prepared earlier. So in my SharePoint environment, my actual day-to-day SharePoint, I've got my quality management system. It's all empty, it's all test data, don't worry. There's nothing super secret in here. Once it loads up, where, for those of you unaware, ISO certifications, you've got to have certain documents, certain structures, certain procedures, policies, all this sort of stuff, risk registers. Ta-da, here it is all in one SharePoint site. So here's my ISOs, and if I go to 27001, there's my second level folders, and my files are in here somewhere. I've only got minimal files. There we go, my test files. What I've actually done with Copilot for QMS is I've pointed the Copilot at the SharePoint library. So now I can say what documents need review, what documents are missing, what should be the next course of action. Is it great? Not yet. It does need a lot of refinement and a lot of manual interaction. So if we just go here, it will come up, blah, 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 and it will want me to log in, I'm sure. Debug Insights isn't available, so we'll go list. Actually, what I'll do is we'll where is it? Published. Of course, I'm on the spot and I can't remember where. There's a test website somewhere that should come up. Yet again, it is very much, let's just push the test button, see if that launches it. No, all right. Yet again, it's changing like literally since last week. Should, knowledge. So if we just go to the knowledge area, sorry, skipping, doing it on the fly. There's my SharePoint library, exactly the same. It's low code, no code. The next step would be actually to start the refinement process through the Azure AI services. So these Copilots in Copilot Studio are exposed to Azure AI services and can consume extensions from both Copilot and from Azure AI. It's a bit, as I said, grey area at the moment, but it's progressing. It's certainly a step forward in the right direction with it. You can, as I said, refine it. We can start to go into topics. How does it interact? We can see a whole bunch of track between topics. So if we go, what is the first Word document? Hopefully it will come up, but if not, it should be able to flip over. And if you're used to sort of Power Automate or sort of workflows, small screen, we can actually follow as this conversation happens. Very low code, we can edit it, we can change our data sources, we can refine it, but at the ultimate end of the day, this is the low code solution. And there we go, it found my test document in there, so happy days, cool. As you can see, I just asked it for one first document, very generic response. You need to put some effort to get these to be able to play nice. Now, if you do put some effort into it, it goes from roughly a 50% accuracy up to a 90 to 95% accuracy in one afternoon. It's not a big job. It's just a matter of knowing how that conversation or how you want that conversation to flow through that bot. It's really just about the knowledge management, knowledge information on that. How are we going for time? Because I can speak for hours. I will get into a few other bits and pieces, but we'll jump on here. So that's the demo, or part of the demo. And I'll just go into Azure AI, and this is where we'll actually play with some stuff. Whoop, oh, didn't have any slides for that. Okay, cool, Azure AI. So, let's minimize this down. This is what I call Opal AI. So this is what I was using to, long story short, I mine for Opal twice a year up in Copilots, going up in October, just to get away from technology, And I wanted a way, because when the drill comes out the ground and it spins off the rock, spin-off drill, spins off there, I wanted a way to be able to identify the rock that I knew and anything I didn't ring a bell. Here's some sandstone, here's some jasper, here's some other bits and pieces. Know them, know them, know them. Hey, I don't know that one. Daniel, you might want to have a look at that one. Tried that, tried playing with it. Yes, I could have done it, but essentially you need roughly a minimum of 1,500 to 2,000 images of training material for the AI to get its eye in on that one subject. You can do it with a minimum of 15, but if you want accuracy, the more, the better. So after literally drilling one day, laying on the couch, I'm like, okay, well, I better do this. Because I also had a knock from Opal Hunters. So you will see this on Opal Hunters on the 9th of September this year. You'll see good old Daniel dying out in the heat, demoing this down a 40-foot shaft. So we do actually find Opal with it, and let me go in the pocket. We've got the little black bag of Opals. So, long story short, and I will open up this. I'll actually open up the back end. So while it's using Azure AI, I'm using the Azure AI Custom Vision Studio. So Archon Mining, let me just cross these off. Very basic studio, so a little more in depth, and I'm going to have to sign in. So what this, long story short, does is every 3 seconds in the video feed, take a photo, shoot it up to Azure AI against the model, and identify what's it looking at. Now, it does look through the world as if everything's Opal. So my pug, Opal. Why? Because it's assuming what it's looking at is what you want it to look at. So let me start the camera up. I did have it, there we go. Where are we? So drill, found my hand as a drill, and Opal. So the percentage is not how much Opal, it's how confident it is that it's Opal. Potch, just for an FYI, is colourless Opal, worthless. So generally, maybe, hopefully, if you've got Potch, you might have some colour, but it should, theoretically, with more training, find it. And if we swap over into the custom vision, there's my Opal AI. Don't worry about all my other ones. Got copper AI and a gap detector as well. So if you got, correct, I was having a talk to a certain supermarket and demoed that as well. So we go in there. So the good thing with the actual, what would you call this, the client application, is it's dumb. All I have to do is point to my details. Yes, that's all fine. These are demo ones. And all of a sudden I can point it to my Opal AI model, or I can point it to my copper model, or I can point it to my gap model. It's just a dumb interface. The power is which model are you pointing at. And to give you a little bit more, hopefully, hey, humans! So I've made it detect Opal, Potch, rock, drill, humans, and holes. Why? Most common thing up in Cooperpedy is holes, drills, and people. So that's roughly Opal AI as one would use it. So when you see me, literally this surface, this exact, I'm going down there with GoPros, I've got the surface, we've got my phone up atop the hole, so I can then Wi-Fi the internet up. So it was fun, but it was really good, a really good experience, and it's a really cool example of, I mean, if I had some parts, it would find the parts, it should find my hand, and it will find, yeah, there we go, colours and things, all has a play in it. And this is where that sort of refinement has to sort of come into it. Let me just stop processing. So if we actually jump into the model, this is it. So this is the demo model that I've created for tonight. I've just dumped in a whole bunch of images, almost 600 images there of just opal, potch, rock, human, hole, drill. Nothing fancy, don't get me wrong about this. This is a low-code solution to do this as well. But you've got the whole power of .NET behind it to sort of pull it together. You train it, and I've been mucking around all time. So if we go predictions, and we can say 10 iterations. But this is where we can actually see what the AI actually saw. So the red is obviously where it does it, and we can sort of adjust our thresholds. Like, it's pretty confident everyone's here as a human, which is good. So, you know, not bad. Always handy. And we can train it and all that sort of stuff. Now, I will open up Opal AI. Good old boring WPF app. That's all it is. It's got a whole bunch of packages, the Azure AI and custom vision and JSON, Newton JSON and everything like that, fun. And it's in 2019 just because I haven't had the time. I do have a console version and a Windows version of this, but as I said, it's very much just the front end. And this is where you're going to be finding, what do you mean when you want an AI? Do you want to integrate it into an application? And when you want to integrate it into an application, what will it do? Are you going to be able to make it like Word? Or do you want an action-based AI? So when I do this, do an action. And no, still load. It's on my dev machine. It's very slow. Fortunately, it needs a new one. Yeah, yep.
Just asking about the OpenAI library. Is that a NuGet package, or where do you get that from?
Yeah, it is a NuGet package, I believe. I haven't checked since it got released. Let me open up here and I'll bring it up as well. But yes, there are the NuGet packages that are coming all through the Azure AI stuff, all through the Copilot stuff. We're probably a few months away from seeing a Copilot NuGet package from Microsoft. But yes, it is coming through the pipeline. If we go to Opal AI Windows, that's the console. We don't want the console. Now this is using a little bit of outdated technology, this one, but Azure Cognitive Services. So Microsoft started with cognitive services. This was Lewis, the natural language, and this has evolved into Copilot, Azure AI. We're not exactly sure at the moment. Officially, it's all cognitive services, Azure AI stuff. But the crux of it is the open CVS Sharp. That's be able to do it all. There's not much in terms of actual official stuff. It's, when I built this, it was all somewhat unofficial for fun. So it does take a little bit, but it is all coming through the pipeline. Visual Studio, as everyone knows, is getting Copilot. Has anyone played with like Copilot with GitHub, got the code, got it to do code? Pretty cool, don't get me wrong. I mean, sometimes it does make up things I found, like, yeah, you just have to call this function. Cool. Yeah.
I've seen Copilot link, like, I've gone, as per this bug, this code works like this, and on the next line it generates a Stack Overflow link. It looks like it should be real, but it's not.
Correct. I mean,
and if you search the web, there's
we're
nothing
going to
like
be for a ride of these hallucinations is what the common term for them is. We're going to be in for a ride of these for a little bit still. Copilot or Gen AI is a very new technology to the human race. It's not something that we've really had before. I mean, if you look at a lot of other technologies, you know, notepads like literally Surfaces, laptops, well, you could sort of link them back to the paper notepad. But what's the equivalent of AI? We don't really have it in our past.
Autocomplete is.
Sorry?
Autocomplete on your phone.
Correct. That was probably one of your closest things that we had in the past, or Clippy, you know, a natural language generation paperclip. And this is where we're still trying to find out, is this the best way forward? So are we making the right decision? I'm not saying you, me, us personally, it's more of a humanity decision, a technology decision of are we going down the right path? And I liken this back to the days of SharePoint where I've got a customer, they want a SharePoint, they want a red one. We've got to go down this path because that's what they want, and they realize actually, no, we've got to go down this path. And I'm sure as developers, you know that pain all too well, but that's the phase we're in as a industry in terms of Gen AI. Yes, you've got leaders like OpenAI, Olama, Facebook, everyone's got their own model, including, you know, good old Daniel. But it is very much, where are we going now? It's very much we're exploring that fog of war. What's actually out there in terms of AI and what can be done. And as I said, you know, a lot of people do it, you know, summarize this email, summarize that, but other people are using it to detect bubbles. I mean, to detect opals, to detect various things. And as it progresses, we're going to move away from the large language models, which are things like ChatGPT and OpenAI, into the smaller language things or models like Phi, Olama and things like that. Phi has, there's 5 versions of Phi: small, medium, large, tiny, and vision.
Will those models be running more on the edge than in the cloud?
It'll be...
Will those models be running more on the edge than in the cloud?
Yes, at the moment they are on the cloud, but the Phi models are designed to be very much compact on the edge devices, mobile as well. Very mobile friendly, they're tiny. They're not large language models, they're small language models. And I know that the big one, I think they call that medium from memory, I can't remember, it's medium and small and tiny. It supports 128K context. So that's a fairly large context for a very small model. How accurate is it? The bigger the model, the more accurate it is. The smaller the model, the less accurate it is. So you've got to find, the way that I sort of have worked with Phi in the past is, let's start off at tiny. How are those results? Okay, they're not so good. Let's move up to the next model. Move up to the next model. Move up to the next model. And then, I mean, I know I've sort of diverted a little bit from extending Copilot, but essentially it's really not about extending Copilot, it's about extending Graph. That's where the mystery lays. It's not actually a Copilot game, it's a Graph game. Same with in Teams and plugins for all of that. It's not file new, it's file new Graph. And Graph will be where it's at for the next several months at least, as Graph evolves as well. We're seeing a huge amount of evolution in Graph, mainly because it's just about time it got all those features as well. And for those who are unaware, anyone not know what Graph is? No? Okay.
Like a knowledge graph of all of my...
You don't know?
I was assuming it's Graph API.
Yeah, it's behind the scenes. I mean, it's the API. In the layman terms, like it's the API, you can get access to pretty much everything through SharePoint, through your content, create teams, create SharePoint sites. It's the one-stop shop. I won't dive too much into Graph because it is a massive area. So resources. So we're coming towards the end of it. As you might imagine, there is a bucket load of resources for everything at the moment. So Azure AI, Copilot Hub, Copilot Lab, the Microsoft Learn, all the extensibilities examples as well. The Azure AI SDKs have also got a new version as well out. I haven't had a chance to look at them, but yet again, we're expecting a lot of improvements. Very rapid deployments, if you've seen, you know, a lot of versions coming very quickly, a lot of improvements, lots of breakages, fun stuff. Those are the extensions. So this is that product extension that I borrowed whole bunch of code from, but it's there. But as you can see, we've got JavaScript, TypeScript, .NET. It's really language independent at the moment on what you want to do because it is all through Graph. If you do want to start to sort of have your custom application, have those extensions through Teams, you're going to have to either go TypeScript or C#. Those are the non-negotiables at the moment. I have a sneaking suspicion we may get Python. Just the way that everything's going, Python for this sort of makes sense. Just the way that it's a bit more AI friendly, a bit more data friendly, to be able to transform, visualize, generate, a whole bunch of stuff. And this is where I go back. I mean, I've been a dev for a long time. I've done assembler, C, C++, C#, VB, and everything in between that I can't remember. And I don't think our languages right now have... AI's up here, C#'s here. We're going to need to get it up here. I don't know if C# will be able to make it, but I'm hoping to. And to sort of clarify what I'm on about, it's how we manipulate, interact, transform, transpose all this data from the raw data into the model. It's that bit there which I just don't know whether C# will be capable of. I mean, C# 9's pretty funky, don't get me wrong. John?
Does the semantic kernel library hold up to Python LangChain?
Yeah, and this is where I start to see it going further. I mean, C# has been a great language for a long time, don't get me wrong, but I just see it needs a bit of an evolution to be able to take it to that AI stage. I mean, if you go, this is pure philosophically in my head, but it's like going from C# to F#. So you've got this object-oriented language that can do great stuff. And then you go to this functional language, and if you've never been exposed to a functional language, you're screwed. Like, it just doesn't push up to that line. I mean, it's hard to explain what I'm trying to get across, don't get me wrong. But you'll see once you start to play with it, like, how do I get these topics, these subjects, these sentiments, how do I detect them in my code? If, else, probably, equals. And that's where I start to see that the base logic operators are really failing to come to terms with AI. And that's just something that, unfortunately, we're going to see probably a lot more. .NET 9's not out, is it? No, okay, cool. Probably see a lot of it a bit more in .NET 9, be a little bit eased. Sorry, my .NET days of 24/7 .NET dev are over, thankfully. So yeah, but .NET 9 has been touted as the AI. We're going to see it. I don't know if it's going to be coming out this year, as in terms of the AI stuff in .NET 9, but we'll see. Whole bunch of resources as well on this. I mean, as you can imagine, learn.microsoft.com has gone off with it all. The Cloud Skills Challenge, the Azure AI Fundamentals. There's a virtual training day coming up next week or the week after. I forget. I posted about it last night. And there is all these AI courses, summits. A lot of it we're not seeing in the dev space yet because, as you can see, the dev tools really aren't there at the moment. We're still just really using Graph, APIs. We're not using it in the context of a Copilot. And then we've got the applied skills. Virtual training days, as I said, that's coming up either next week or the week after. And the certs. There's no Copilot certs yet. There is some AI certs as well if you want to get into that. The AI was at MS 900 is the AI fundamentals as well. Questions? Because I know we're probably pushing up against time, I think. Or what time do you normally finish? About now? Okay, cool. Any questions or queries? I mean, anything about Copilot, Gen AI, how to interact with it? Loud, because I'm deaf, sorry.
Alright. So, like when you were adding knowledge from SharePoints,
Yep.
right? How granular can you get? Can you be like these specific folders within a SharePoint?
Yeah, so in that scenario, it's going to be either a file, a folder, a list, a library, or a site.
Okay.
So all the different levels of SharePoint, and you can have multiple. So for example, I might have in the knowledge area, point to that one particular file and this particular list or library. So it combine the two. As I said, I think there's a maximum of 5. I know they were looking at lifting that 5 sources. The reason why is because if you start to add 30 sources, check this one, check this one, check this one, check this one. Clear user, cross, see you later. So, yeah.
And is adding new sources, like with your Lego example, that was like really quick. Like you add lego.com and then within very shortly you're asking a question and it's searching.
Yep, goes off to Lego. I would love to see the web server of Lego's logs, access logs, to see how Copilot goes out and just probe it.
Yeah. Does that happen when you add the knowledge or when you like actually ask?
Correct. So it actually happened post me hitting OK when I added the URL. It goes off, scans it, puts it in a semantic index, and then essentially it's ready to go.
Right, okay.
The index uses embeddings, doesn't it?
Sorry?
The index is based on vector embeddings.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
okay,
think
cool.
so.
Yeah.
Embeddings,
Not semantic? Not semantic?
No idea.
Yeah, okay, all right. Anyway.
How frequently does it update if it basically adds it to the model at the point of adding it? How frequently does it update if the website changes?
The question. Microsoft minutes we're talking here. So I think the official, from memory, the official is 5 to 30 minutes.
Okay, so
So
pretty
it's
frequent
not
polling.
too bad.
You can do
If I, let's say we put it like as right now, Lego put up a new Lego set. We don't know about it. As long as it's visible, it's not something sort of heading down. We should get it between 5 and 30 minutes. It depends when the re-index is run, and go out and probe that. But generally speaking, it's fairly quick.
And does it crawl the whole site or just like one link, one set of links down? Like, do you know how far it crawls?
No, I don't. I don't know how deep it goes.
probably
I'll have to
goes as
apply.
far as robots text.
I'm guessing not very deep.
That seems very fast if it was.
Yeah, correct. I mean, if you're going like 6 or 7 URLs deep, it's going to be paused forever. I mean, and this is where we have to start to balance those things. You know, if you've got this big, if you've got a catalogue of 100 million things, probably not going to just work the way of, hey, title equals product name. It's too slow for it, and this is where all vectors and semantics come into it to help it sort of build those and quicker responses as well. I mean, watching some demos last night, Fi's up to 10 times quicker. It's becoming more and more quick than Copilot. I mean, if you've used Copilot, you see it takes bloody ages to respond. And that's because it is going through all those safety checks, the visual detections, and just so you don't get something unexpected on your screen at work. But, I mean, in terms of update, it's pretty quick. It is pretty quick. And just on that note, as time progresses, we'll see it get quicker. More data centers are coming online, more of the Cobalt CPUs are getting used, and that was a big, and this is, I suppose, back to November, when Microsoft said, hey, 300 minimum license. Why? It's because they only had so much data center capacity. So if everyone and their dog got it, it's going to be slow as a wet weekend, and it already was slow as a wet weekend. So this is where, okay, it might be a little bit slow now, and you have to sort of think which areas are going to get improvement. And the speed of responses definitely going to get improvement. There's no two ways about it. The speed of search, it's like SharePoint search, SharePoint index. Yes, it can happen if you just happen to hit it just after the index and crawlers has got it. Yes, cool, no problem. Otherwise, come on. So it's just going to be balancing. And a lot of the AI stuff is balancing as well. You know, how fast, how much response do you want? Like, I mean, you can create an AI 5 minutes, have a Lego one, no problem. Or you can get me in there for 6 months and I'll hit you up for 6 figures. It's not a fun experience, but it depends what you're trying to get out of it. Where is that value add? If you can get value out of it, like if I can go, you spend them 300 grand on sales a year with some AI, we can get some next best actions, we can look at your planograms, we can look at how things are laid out in store or in your manufacturing line, we might be able to knock off 100 grand. Okay, cool, I'll spend 50 grand, it's no brainer. First year I'm going to get 50 grand back, second year I'm going to make 100 grand. Cool, no problem. So it's really about finding those use cases, and the use cases, I mean, Microsoft are pushing the whole Copilot for Microsoft 365. That's their flagship one. Draft emails, summarize this. Yeah, cool, but where do you actually want the value of AI? It's not going to be able to summarize an email. Sure, you'll save $30 a month on it, no problem. And on that note, if you can save 2 hours worth of time with Copilot per month, you've saved your license fee. It's really a no-brainer in that scenario. If you are constantly using it, like someone like me, no-brainer, I'm using it 15 times an hour. And same with people that are sort of generating content, not so much consuming. Consuming they'll do, summarize and give me that information, but the real power of AI is Azure AI. Any other questions or queries or what the hell is this AI? Yeah, go for it.
One more.
Yeah, go for it.
The big question I've never been able to figure out an answer for with generating contents, and that is who can own it? Like, as a business, you actually own the IP of something if you use AI to generate it?
Yep. Pretty much. So it would be the same as code. So who owns code?
It's the same with all content. They all kind of have the same problem.
Correct. And this is where certainly things like ISO 42001 is coming into play a little bit of how that's managed, what's the risks around it, what the ethics is around it as well, because it's starting to play the ethics card into it around, what content should we have, what should our model actually contain. So for example, don't point at the HR folder with everyone's birth certificates. Probably not a good idea. And this is where the business itself will have to step up and say what the goal is. You go, okay, well, we can generate code, we can do this, we can generate our documentation, but who owns that content, or the content within the model, the actual model itself? It's like, it can be complicated if you're using information from different sources. This is where OpenAI has got into a whole bunch of legalities as well, because it's just gone off and scraped the internet, and everyone's like, oh, that's my content. And now the legality starts. So it's unknown at this stage, and it's not the ideal answer, but it's the realistic answer at the moment. Because it's so new, so flash, we haven't had this before, we're still trying to figure it all out. Any other? Yep.
This isn't so much a question for you about your presentation, I just thought I'd share, given the mentioning in the open summary and someone asking you on the chat. We've been using the OpenAI, the new released NuGet package the past fortnight at work, and we've already abandoned it.
Not good?
Yeah, like just the basics, like it was buggy, and especially the authentication bit, like using managed identity to connect the app to the OpenAI was breaking, like just at random times for random reasons. And also it gives you a lot less back, if that makes sense, as in it'll give you just the content back, whereas the REST API, which we switched to just using the HTTP client, gives you like how many tokens you've used and the billing and like a reliable yes, no, was this content flagged for any inappropriate anything.
Correct, I mean you're right, and just to add to that, and this is where Microsoft is filling out the market, the industry, the devs as well. They're saying, well, how do we best provide this information? And the question becomes, well, what information do we provide? And this is where things change, it's swapped around a little bit, certainly for now. The next 12 months, it's going to be up and down. It's going to be good one day and broken the next, unfortunately, because, I think it was ChatGPT 2 to 3 or something, where everyone was happy, and then ChatGPT sort of took a dive to the bit of a slow side. Oh, I can't do that. I've got to do research. I don't know nothing. And they retrained it and brought it back up. So we're going to see these troughs and peaks around AI for some time. And bugs. And some weird stuff too. Like, just on that, I've got a few minutes, but using AI, this is the whole ethics thing. Where does it go? Hey, check out my fridge. What ingredients do I have to make a cake? Hey, check out my warehouse. What ingredients do I have to make a bomb? It's the same technology, unfortunately, and this, like the face AI detection stuff, where is that ethics sit? Where is that balance? Where is that middle ground? There was a classic one a few months ago where a company in NZ, really benign thing, give it 3 ingredients and it will make you a meal. Cool. Vegemite, bread, and poison. And poison and Vegemite sandwiches. Yes! Cool, no problem. Don't recommend them. But that's where you can start to see, because it doesn't know. The AI at the end of the day is stupid. It has no knowledge of itself. You have to give that knowledge. Fine, can't eat ant poison. all of a sudden the AI goes, okay, fine, Vegemite, bread, butter, okay, done. You know, it's where we're going to have to, yet again, find those balances of how much is too much of training and versus not enough training, and the ethics and the AI, and it's going to be a fun ride, but it's going to also sometimes be a stressful one because things are going to break. Any other questions or queries or points, or what the hell's Microsoft doing with that?
We had a question, another question online, just asking, could you use Copilot to teach you maths and coding?
Oh yes, yes, very much so. And this is just the web version, freebie, copilot.microsoft.com. If I flick over work, that's my Copilot for Microsoft 365. But create a test about Opal from Kubernetes and test me on it. Very generic. Off it goes. Not a problem. Pick the topic. As long as it's got content aware of it, it can do it. Now, with a better prompt and a bit more time, we can see our references. Oh, hang on. Didn't do too well with those questions. I failed them. Can you please provide easier questions? Now, let's just say that I've built a little app, does all of this, and the user gets 10 questions, and they get a 50% passing rate. So off it goes and does its thing. You could have the AI go, well, if you've got a 50% or lower, don't give you harder questions, give you lateral questions. So, you know, move across the knowledge spectrum to sort of test those areas. And yet again, modifying prompts, because a lot of this is, and yet again, left field or right field for me on this one, is just because you write the prompt doesn't mean that's the prompt that has to go to the AI. So you can present a window to the user, hey, what do you want to do? I want to write 10 questions about Opal. Okay, fine. You intercept that prompt and go, you want to write 10 questions about Opal while it's blue with 3 fingers and you've got a hat on. You don't have to just solely rely on the user's prompt. You can modify it, question it, enhance it, reduce it, and then go lateral up or down based on their knowledge as well. So this is where we're saying, you know, what's an AI? Well, what do you actually mean? You know, what do you actually want the AI to do? And this is probably getting more into the AGI stuff, the general AI, but we're miles off from general AI yet. But yeah, I mean, like, there's a create a test in C# for Copilot. I mean, we've all put the stupid prompts into Copilot and into ChatGPT. We can see what it does. See, now we're a bit quicker. The code stuff's a bit quicker. Not bad speed, to be honest, in that one. And then, yet again, modify the prompts. We can sort of change where it is, how we want, how to sort of navigate that information flow. And this is becoming quite big in education. So different kids, different skill levels, different knowledge levels, sit down with EduBot, and the bot can ask you questions, and based on your responses, will up or down or sideways the questions. So that way, child's not going, hey, I've got no bloody idea about this stuff. It won't keep hammering them. It will actually reduce it down. Hey, get your confidence. Here's some easier questions. Here's some more relevant questions as well. And then take you through that path. And sort of be that buddy, that support buddy as well. And with that, that's probably that one. Any other questions or queries? I think Dave's ready to rip me up. So,
would you join me in thanking Daniel?
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. I know we didn't get into too much code. I will publish it up and get it working, but Copilot and AI is a massive subject, so I do appreciate it.
And so when can we see you on TV?
It's 9th of September.
9th of September?
Yeah.
Cool.
Out there, down in Kubernetes, 45-degree heat. It was fun, but oh, bloody hot.
I haven't watched that show before, so I'll have to keep on that. So.
Ah, cool. I will grab those.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you again next one.
I'm happy to